glass sword.
Update 4.0, we go through this shit. Update 4.0, we just removed Joker from that.
Hey, do we have everyone over here? Wait, so, first thing I want to mention is kind of two different burettes they both work. Similarly, it's just a different valve here. So this one, to get it to drip out, you have to just squeeze this here, and you got to make sure, one of the things that you got to look at is this thing is actually across the rubber tubing over here. This one's actually pretty, I find a little bit more reliable sometimes. But if you guys don't have this thing across the rubber tubing, if you have it like this, it might be bar here. It's actually across. You find that it is plugged because the rubber's like this. Just kind of squish it so that it opens up. Just play around with it. Play around with it so it works. The first thing, anytime you get a burette, the first thing you need to do is make sure that it's not clogged. If you get some tap water, just a little bit of distilled water, pour it through the top with maybe a funnel, okay, like this, and then pour a little bit in with distilled water, okay, and then open it up and make sure it just goes, okay. So if it's clogged, if it's clogged, just get a different one, and then let me know that one's clogged. Now a couple things. If you're using this type, of burette, this thing right here, okay, is called a stopcock. Right? Now, all right. So the important thing is you gotta remember if it's perpendicular, and hopefully you know these terms from math. If it's perpendicular, it's closed. Okay? It's perpendicular to the burette. If it is parallel, it is open. Okay, so before you put anything in, should it be parallel or perpendicular? Perpendicular. Very good. All right, so just make sure it's closed because if it's going through, you're kind of wasting screwing again. Once you figured out that it is open, or sorry, that it is not clogged, what you should do is rinse the burette 5 times. Approximately 5 millimeters. So you don't have to be exact here, you just gotta rinse it a little bit. So fill it up to about here. Okay, so again, with a funnel. Again, if you are not a tall person, okay, push it down a little bit so that you can actually pour it. So the worst thing you can do is try to stand on the stool and try to pour it in, and then fall over and knock down like a domino effect and knock down. So just pour a little bit in. Nothing. Okay, so about 5 milliliters of the actual thing that you're putting inside your burette. Okay, so like if you wanted to fill this with sodium hydroxide, okay, put a little bit of sodium hydroxide, okay, and similar to a pipette, and you just want to rinse it just to make sure that it's all coated with the sodium hydroxide. Okay, and then finally you can do a waste beaker. And you want to do that about 3 times as a general rule. And then it should be coated in your sodium hydroxide or hydrochloric acid, whichever one you choose. Okay? Once you've done that, I want to fill it up to 0. So if you guys haven't noticed, the burette goes from 50 down here to 0 up there. Okay, so in the notes yesterday, we kind of talked about why, but simply just be nice and, especially if you're using a funnel like this, just once it gets close to the top, if you just kind of slow down. Now, you don't have to be right at 0. Okay, you can be underneath the 0. So all you need to do is be able to record your VCR. Okay, so here, I would say this is about 0.61. Okay, so remember going to 2 decimal places, make the reading, and try to be consistent with it. Be at eye level when you're reading it. Notice how it's kind of difficult to see that because it has kind of the white. So what I would say is if you have a dark background or a piece of paper or your hand, there's probably easy to see. Okay, if you have dark numbers, so kind of like this, you want a white piece of paper. something like that. Now, I like to put something white, white underneath the Erlenmeyer class because you're going to look for color change, and typically it's easier to see a color change on white than it is on black. Does that make sense? Right. So now that I have the burette set up, now I'm going to set up my sample. Let's say sodium hydroxide is in there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take 10 milliliters of hydrochloric acid for my sample. So you're going to have to use a pipette, and you want to pipe that 10 milliliters into there. I'm just going to quickly, okay, quickly water. Okay. All right, so you want 10 milliliters into there. Okay, after you pipetted 10 milliliters into there, what do you need to do? What's the next step right after? What? Indicator. Okay, so immediately that should just be muscle memory almost. So this is an example of an indicator that I have for phenolphthalein. Right, so I take an eyedropper. Okay, and you want to take 3 drops and you want to stick it in and drop it 3 times from that dropper. Okay, and then you're ready to go. You're ready to do your first titration. Right, so one of the important things is when you're doing a titration, you have indicator in here. Okay, one person at a time for the titration. So it's not like one person works the burette and the other person is holding it underneath the swirl. Okay, it's only one person doing both things, controlling both the burette and also swirling. Right.
So you only put indicator in like the stick?
Yeah, only put the indicator in the sample. Okay. So let's say this is hydrochloric acid, if I use the iron on the okay. There is the boundary between 8 and 10 pH. Okay, so it's clear below 8 and it's pink above. Regular pink above 10. All right. What to use for it?
No, like you rinse it out with your
whatever you're putting in the beer. Yeah.
And then you just turn that toward perpendicular, and then
I left it out. Sorry, if you put it, parallel or left
Yeah.
it out, yeah.
and so you just fill it up with your
Yeah, so sodium hydroxide. I imagine if sodium hydroxide was my titrate, that's what I would rinse it with. If it was hydrochloric acid, that's what I would rinse it with. Okay, so let's say I had hydrochloric acid here, if I put some in here, it would be clear, and so then I titrated, what color would the endpoint be?
Pink.
Pink. Okay, so that's kind of how, depending on what indicator you use, percentage that's what it would be. If it was bromothymol blue, I would start with, it would be yellow, and then if it was acid, and then it would turn to green. Okay, so actually how to do the titration. Now there's a few things you can do if you're good at swirling. Some people will do this, like use their right hand and then swirl with their left hand. I find that a little bit, I have less control with that, and because this is kind of not very stable, so sometimes you're holding it like this, you're trying to control it, not very stable. So I use something that I call the method. It's not an official term. It's not like if you go and just like talk to someone, you're like, yeah, use the palm method, because very secure, you're like, what the hell are you talking about? Right? Okay, so this is just the thing I call it. So I go. So I go over, and then I can kind of control it like this. Okay, so I can go up and down, that, and then it's a little bit more stable because it's not on everything like that. So you'll notice, and it might take a little bit of getting used to, but you can actually do like drops. If you don't go all the way perpendicular, you'll notice that it's kind of different. Okay. So, right? So if you're not, so we can open it all the way up. Obviously, all the way up. Okay, and then drop like that, and do that. I have a lot of control if I'm using it. If I'm careful. Okay. Now, you want to constantly
that ultimately are based on how to sliding and swirling something increases collision capacity. And distributes all chemicals.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of time to also for the acid or base that you're using to kind of mix out and mix and for the reaction on the one that's will happen, and also there's more. If it's slowed, all you did was this, you kind of drifted, you're gonna let it go. What would happen is that, like, the middle of it will kind of react, if you like the whole, and so you won't accurate reading. So the faster you kind of let it mix like that, the easier you'll be able to see that color, or more instantaneous, you'll see that color change. Right, so as you, let's say, as you get close to, after you've recorded the initial, you kind of get close to the end point. If I'm using channel feeling, what's going to happen is this, I'm going to see, if it's hydrophilic acid, and I'm using sodium hydroxide, and I expect it to turn pink, you'll see a drop, it's going to turn pink, it's going to turn pink for probably a few seconds, and as you go, it'll go away. Okay, so the general rule of thumb when you're using channel failing is you want to turn for like a very light color for about 20 to 30 seconds. Okay, it should be permanent, close to permanent, but about 20 to 30 seconds, and then eventually equilibrium will shift it back towards kind of the clear side of things. And so 20 to 30 seconds, you're probably good. Okay, to do a final reading. Now, when you get really close to the equivalence point, what you'll notice is you got to start to slow down. You don't want to be too fast, because literally a drop like that I just did will be an overshot. And so you might have to start doing half drops. Okay, so I'll show you guys how to do a half drop. So basically, a full drop is pretty easy, because it'll just be like that, and just let it drop, and that's a full drop. Okay, a half drop, which is approximately like half a milliliter, not half a milliliter, like a 0.05 milliliters or something. Okay, so you let it go about halfway. Oh, I didn't do well there. Up there, halfway. Okay, and you close it, tap the side of the glass, and then swirl. Okay, that's one way to do it. The other way, if you're very confident with your skills of titrating, you can do a quick snap of the wrist, and after that, you can just be a half drop. So if you go like, this really quickly, that's a half drop. Okay. Now the problem with doing that, if you're not good at it, is you might be a little bit too aggressive, and what people do is they'll spin it all the way and open it up like that. Okay, so, and then I've seen that happen, and then that like ruins a trial, and that's okay, you can do another trial, but like, if you're not trying to do it, practice, get just like that. Okay. I've done lots of titration, so I know, right? But it's one of these things, it's like, it takes practice, right? And it's okay if you guys mess up first the whole time. It's actually pretty fun to try to get the best results, like just trying to get that light pink color, right? And so, basically, one person at a time doing titration, and the next person can go afterwards, right? So, but basically, you're just kind of doing this. You're just controlling it, and once you're pretty close, boom, for confidence, okay, I know I need about a half drop, boom, half drop, okay, half drop, okay. Alright, so play around with it, yep. You can't really do half drops with these ones, so you can't do it the same way. So what you have to do is, again, let it out really slowly, and you have to do this drop line, so you have to come out a little bit, and then tap that. Now the nice thing about this is that you have control over it, so you can actually tap it. Can't really do that with this one. Right, so there's pros and cons to either one. It doesn't really matter what you use. Some people prefer this, and some people are more accurate with this, some people are more accurate with that. Now we only have limited amount of these ones. We get more of these ones, so we might decide this one. Doesn't really matter. I just love using this one as well. I just grew up using this one, so I go with what I would recommend using at one point. Okay. Any questions about titration? Okay, so once I get to the equivalence point, remember to record your final zero reading, and then I would also do the quick math there to figure out what volume you've added, because my final VR reading for my first draw is my initial VR reading for the next draw. So especially if I have enough volume, right? So let's say I only added 10. Like I started at 16, I went to 26. Right? So the final VR reading is 26. We want that at 10 milliliters. The next draw, I know I'm going to get 26 to around 36. Okay, so that means for my next draw, I'm just going to go, well, I'm going to let it go all the way to about 33. Okay? And now I slow down and I start to make it a little bit more accurate. Because then you're saving time. Right? And maybe you'll get another trial if you do it that happen, whereas if you started just stripping at the beginning, it takes a lot longer, and you end up with a 2 fouls instead of 4. Okay, any questions? Right, if you want, if you guys want to play with this and you want to figure it out, by all means, okay, you're happy to talk to that. You can, continue writing your report.